Scandal at the French Open as investigators probe match fixing in a women's doubles match. Watch this space. We'll tell you all about it as that story develops. But we're talking football now on the SportsMax Zone. And earlier on Tuesday, this Tuesday, football's world governing body FIFA issued a statement warning that Trinidad and Tobago will be excluded from the 2022 World Cup qualifiers if they fail to satisfy the conditions necessary for their ban to be lifted by FIFA's Bureau of Counsel. For TNT to be included among the teams eligible to play in the CONCACAF World Cup qualifiers, the FIFA ban would have to be lifted before December 18 this year. This is the statement sent by FIFA to the head of its normalization committee in TNT, Robert Haddad, earlier today. So, the email, FIFA's letterhead, and the relevant credentials. Dear Mr. Haddad, we remind you that on September 24, the Bureau of the Council decided in accordance with Article 16, Paragraph 1 of the FIFA statutes to suspend TTFA with immediate effect due to grave violations of the FIFA statutes. By way of this communication, we inform you that FIFA World Cup Qatar 2022 World Cup qualifiers for the CONCACAF region are set to begin in March 2021. The organization of such competition entails complex logistical and operational matters intensified by the COVID-19 crisis. In view of this, please note that FIFA has decided that in order to ensure the proper preparation and planning of the participant teams, if the suspension imposed on the TTFA is not lifted by 18 o'clock on 18th December 2020, we have no choice but to exclude the TTFA from participating in the CONCACAF World Cup qualifiers. As a result of the suspension of the TTFA's membership of FIFA, the Normalization Committee, which was appointed by FIFA, has necessarily seized all operational and management functions over the TTFA. However, we want to highlight that the only legitimate leadership of the TTFA, recognized by FIFA and CONCACAF, is the one led by Mr. Robert Haddad. Having said this, any communication from FIFA with TTFA will continue to be exclusively with Mr. Robert Haddad. Thank you for your attention, and it's signed by Fatma Samura, FIFA's Secretary General, the first woman to hold this post. Well, we are getting ready to join Brent Sancho, the former TNT international and owner of Central FC, to talk about this issue. But Lance, based on your strict interpretation, what is FIFA saying in this missive?
Well, they have fallen in line predictably with what CONCACAF had ruled just ahead of the Gold Cup, or the announcement of the Gold Cup fixtures, and they had said that if the ban hadn't been lifted by December the 18th, then TNT would not be included in the CONCACAF Gold Cup, which is in July of next year. So if CONCACAF is stating that, and the World Cup qualifiers are starting in March, it stands to reason that if they can't make the World Cup, the Gold Cup qualifiers, because the issue is unresolved, then no surprise that their World Cup campaign starting next March is also in jeopardy.
Yep. And Mariah, the issue is that the Normalization Committee can't do any work because of the suspension of TTFA, and those employed by the TTFA are no closer to knowing when they'll get their paychecks.
Definitely, and I feel like some hands are tied, including the Normalization Committee, because based on how the TNT High Court has set up things, George, I mentioned at the top of the show the latest development where now the United TTFA, they're asking FIFA to cover their legal fees and pay for the ongoing matter that was taking place in the TNT High Court. And I feel like, you know, when I want to believe things are getting better and we're getting closer to some sort of resolution, I feel like we're digging ourselves into a bigger and bigger hole. And this message from FIFA today is just a reminder, you know, like, hey, I'm letting you know that you are suspended and we know you're suspended. You have to do the right things before certain time because you're just going to be kicked out for good.
It's a sad development. All right, so we are still waiting to make contact with Brent Sancho. I think we have him now on the phone. Brent, are you there? Brent Sancho? Brent Sancho, are you there? All right, we are still waiting to make that link. Interestingly, the letter speaks to Robert Haddad remaining the point man, and that's significant because, of course, United TTFA is continuing its court action as if to say that, well, we are the TTFA. And, you know, there are some things that you just can't understand, you can't see sense in, and United TTFA, I believe, are acting as if there is a parallel football authority with a parallel group of international teams with which they can play and turn their backs on FIFA. So come hell or high water, whatever happens with the FIFA matter, and if the worst happens and they are kept out of world football, they can just go into this parallel space to compete for parallel honors, a parallel CONCACAF Gold Cup and parallel World Cup qualification. Yeah, it all doesn't make sense. Brent Sancho, sorry?
We have him?
Yes, we do.
Okay.
You were saying? Go ahead.
No, I was just saying that's why I made the point that we're digging ourselves into a bigger and a bigger hole. Okay, to make matters worse, we're already suspended. Now you ask them to pay for our legal fees, something that they didn't even want to be a part of in the first place.
Yep. Well, Brent Sancho, you're with us now. How much is this letter influenced by the fact that October 9, the High Court has a decision to make on October 9? Has that reality spurred FIFA into setting down this diktat in its latest letter to Robert Haddad on behalf of the Normalization Committee?
Well, you'd have to suggest it has a lot to do with, of course, what is happening on the 9th of October. If you look at the way FIFA has handled this, I want to call it debacle here in Trinidad, they have been very spot on as it relates to the significance as to their correspondence with Robert Haddad here in Trinidad and Tobago. It must be mindful, guys, that the main reason for FIFA handing down a suspension to Trinidad and Tobago is because of the court case that was pending. Now, on October 9th, you have a possibility, and of course, you have to be reminded that FIFA has withdrawn themselves from this case, but there's a possibility on the 9th of October that Justin Gobin is going to hand down a judgment in favor of United TTFA. And that now will, of course, put Trinidad and Tobago in an even worse position. So you've moved away, of course, from not just having a matter in court, but now you have a judgment from the courts of Trinidad and Tobago, something that clearly that FIFA statutes has underlined as being a part of their membership.
And perhaps you are the wrong man to ask this question, Brent, but we have you on. If Justice Gobin rules on October 9 in favor of United TTFA, what value is that judgment to United TTFA?
Well, I think most people here in Trinidad equate it to a team scoring in the 90th minute, and the goal that they scored is one, and the opposing team would have scored 7, and they go around celebrating and running and going to the fans. It means absolutely of no significance to the men that have been pursuing this. And more importantly, it also, if you are to talk about significance, it also puts the membership of Trinidad and Tobago into an even deeper hole. So you have to try to calculate through the minds of the persons behind it as to what is the end game here, what are they trying to achieve? Because at the end of the day, everything has, since the start of this, has been significantly clear that the statutes of FIFA it suggests that their jurisdiction is the only jurisdiction that they would respect.
I saw a story breaking in TNT moments before coming on the show about the General Secretary, of the TTFA, the one that was elected in November last year, Ramesh Ramdan, saying that United TTFA expects to continue working with Peter Miller and to get things going after the court ruling. Does FIFA's statute say something about blacklisting anyone who openly collaborates, I don't want to say consort, openly collaborates with a footballing entity, National Footballing Authority, that is blacklisted? To the extent I'm asking the question because I want to know if anybody who has any business with United TTFA going forward, if they run the risk of being ostracized or worse by FIFA.
Well, there's nothing in any of the correspondences that would allude to such a situation. But you would, from a other country, the other members association, the other 210 members association, obviously they will have nothing to do with Trinidad and Tobago. Hence, of course, a notification about participation in the Gold Cup and the World Cup would be at jeopardy. I think Ramesh's statement is indicative of the persons around this case and the persons that are at the forefront of it, where they seek to do whatever they please to do. And this is just a further indictment on the matter. It would just certainly, obviously, put Trinidad and Tobago down further in a hole. It was mentioned as well in that article, George, that in one of Ramdan's quotes is that he didn't believe we would qualify for Qatar anyway. So the 2 years would be spent in development. So it's been a delusional approach by United TTFA. A lot of the membership here in Trinidad, it must be said, do not support this court action. And a lot of the membership is dismayed and in disbelief as to what is transpiring right now and the direction that they are taking. And I think that is where the frustration lies, is that a lot of the persons involved in football, both from an administrative point of view and the players, are extremely frustrated as to what is transpiring now.
Brent, I have a difficult question for you because I recognize that you are at a loss as to trying to assess exactly what the United TTFA is about here. And we are struggling ourselves in the face of not getting them to come to talk to us on the show. We have seen FIFA institute normalization committees to many, many countries globally. Even CAF, the Confederation of African Football, not Nigeria or Ghana or Egypt, CAF, the entire body that runs African football. FIFA has also had normalization committees there. So we know the power of FIFA. I hear a lot of criticism about the United TTFA and the stand that they're taking, that they're on an ego trip and that kind of thing. But it's hard for me to think that they could be fighting so hard and taking such an unpopular position that they don't feel that they are right. I'm thinking they must think that they are doing something by their rating or their assessment that they are right. You said most of the football fraternity in Trinidad and Tobago is against them. The ones that are for them, what are they saying, Brent? Because this has gone too far, really.
Well, there are very few that support it, and going back to what is the end game for United TTFA, and even if you look at possible plausible end game scenarios for United TTFA, it still does not add up, because at the end of the day, they would have to face the membership who would surely put an end to any sort of reign. There is currently now here in Trinidad and Tobago a call for an emergency general meeting for the removal of this executive, which I suspect would come the day after the court case. And that would suggest that, of course, everyone wants to see the back of William Wallace and his executives. And the ones that have supported him are seen to be supported based on a very hollow perspective. A lot of the conversation is about the heavy-handedness of FIFA and whether or not FIFA has the jurisdiction to remove a certain executive. And of course, it also points back to the Act of Parliament as to what, of course, TTFA was built on, which they started on. And even if you were to take any of those arguments, there are several other arguments to counter those positions. So it is very, very difficult to see any position that the United TTFA may think that they may be right on. I mean, there's also conversation, Lance, on principle and morals, and we know from the dealings of United TTFA that they are the last to speak about principles and morals. So no matter which corner you look at it, no matter which direction you point, they certainly it's very difficult to try to piggyback on any of the arguments that they may have.
Yeah, I remember one of the documents that the United TTFA had put out a couple of weeks ago, maybe a week and a half ago, spoke of FIFA implementing or exercising fair play, that's FEAR, as opposed to fair play, which they have as part of their tagline in international football, FAIR, that is. And they're suggesting that a lot of the support, or a lot of the support for the United TTFA backing off this is because of fear and not necessarily because they want to see the right thing done.
Look, I think one of the things, even here in Trinidad and Tobago, there are several affiliate membership to the TTFA, and their constitution clearly points to of course, using CAS as the arbitration process and not going down the lane of the judicial system. And there are members, and there are persons who are part of United TTFA who have exercised that authority. So it's a culture, it's an understanding. Once you're in football, once you're part of sport, a global sport, you understand that these are the perimeters that it runs on. And so to say that members are unfair, I think that's a very, very unfair statement to even indicate that, simply because we here in Trinidad and Tobago, the membership, the majority of the membership, understand the parameters and the functionality of what we are involved in as it relates to football. So it's not a fear factor. I think everyone understands that these are the rules and we have to abide by them.
Brent Sanchez, the die has been cast. Let's see what number comes up as it rolls and is about to stop in the corner. We'll talk. All the best to you.
Have a good one, guys.
Yep. Break time, back with more on the SportsMax Zone.